Hi guys, Bob Cary here. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. I have a YouTube video entitled Fishing Kayak Modifications, comma, Best DIY Kayak. And you can also see that on YouTube by typing in the words kayak, DIY, all capital letters, comma, outriggers, comma, and I added the words stabilizers, comma, raised seat. Now, you can probably just do kayak, fishing kayak modifications, comma, best DIY, and you'll find it, or kayak DIY, comma, outriggers, and you'll find it. It shows improvements that I made to a sit-on-top kayak that has benefited people from all over the world. And I initially only paid $650 for my kayak. I think they still sell for that at Bass Pro Shop to this day. You don't have to buy an expensive kayak to go out kayak fishing. And this is about kayak fishing. Given the work that I did in installing a trolling motor, outriggers, 5 rod holders, raising my seat, and adding foam mats for sound deadening and all of that, people ask, why didn't I just go out and buy a boat, a small boat motor and trailer? Well, this is my response to that. In short, there is a huge advantage in owning a kayak and trolling motor over owning a boat motor and trailer. My sit-on-top kayak has a flat floor in it from the front to the back. It's 12 feet long, which they say is the right size for fishing. And I ended up buying a saltwater 46-pound thrust trolling motor from Newport Vessels. The reason I mention their name is because that trolling motor cost me $160, brand new. Minn Kota comparisons are like $4.99. I clamped a 2x6 behind my seat using L brackets and stainless steel L brackets, and I clamped my motor right alongside of me for easy access and lifting up when I get in shallow water. I didn't want something all the way at the back of the kayak that I needed to get out and raise up, because oftentimes you can get out here in Sarasota in the Gulf, you can be out in the bay or intercoastal and come into shallow water pretty quickly. So anyway, I bought a little inexpensive wheel carrier to get it to and from the water, because empty the kayak weighs 78 pounds without the battery and motor on it, and that adds about another 60 pounds. So anyway, mine is from Bass Pro. The model that I bought is an Ascend, ASCEND, and the model number is FS12T. And again, you can check out my videos by the words that I gave you to type in on YouTube about how I outfitted it using ordinary hardware parts from Home Depot. Now, like a lot of people, I was on the fence about whether to buy a kayak or a small boat motor and trailer, and so I weighed the pros and cons to having both. And the main points of comparison were the initial cost to buy, the ongoing maintenance costs, cost to run it every time you go out, the ease of launching it, storage, tags and registration with the DMV for a trailer, and of course the time it takes to clean up each time after use. So with regard to the cost of buy, as I said, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars for a kayak and trolling motor, but you will spend thousands of dollars for a boat motor and trailer. I'm guessing with my kayak at around $650 plus tax that I've maybe spent another $300 to $350 on a battery trolling motor, stainless steel L brackets, the 2x6 behind my seat, the 1/4-inch thick workout matting that I bought from Walmart to cushion the floor, my wheel carrier. I bought padded wraps that go on my car roof, crossbars, to just give a little bit of a cushion between the metal crossbar and the underside of the kayak. And you know, a boat motor and trailer is going to cost 3 to 4 times that. If I spend $1,000 all total on my kayak, a boat motor trailer is going to cost 3 to 4 times that. And I'm told that a trailer can run around $1,000. Even a breakaway swing tongue trailer, if you have to garage it, can still cost you around $1,000. A brand new 10 horsepower motor is about $2,300, and God knows what a boat can cost depending upon what you're buying. So in a boat, yes, you can cover more area. But I'm not in a race when I'm in the water. I always see people racing up and down the bay, racing up and down the intercoastal because they've put in at a boat ramp, which is not where they want to go fishing. By contrast, in comparison with a kayak, I put in where I do want to go fishing. So I don't have to go very far to fish. Um, and again, it's going to cost you money every time you go out because gasoline engines require gasoline. And so there's going to be an expense every time you go out. By comparison, it costs me nothing to go out on a kayak using my trolling motor. A trailer has to be tagged and registered with the DMV, and so that's another cost that's continual and ongoing for registration and tags for that. But that's a non-issue with a kayak if you are able to load it atop your car or truck. Now, some people I know have bought a lightweight, I think they're jet ski trailers, and they'll pull their kayaks behind their car, and then when they get to a park that doesn't have trailer parking, they'll disconnect the trailer from the car and just park the car alongside of it. So basically they're taking up two spaces, and then they use a wheel carrier to take the kayak down to the water. Why do they do that? Because they're avoiding getting the trailer in the water where it's going to corrode the bearings, corrode the brake light wiring, and the springs and so forth. Corrosion takes place. That's why maintaining a trailer can be time consuming and or costly, and both actually. And so that's what they do where if you're at a park where trailer parking is not available. Ironically, I've been to some trailer parks, or I've been to parks, boat ramp parks, that don't have trailer parking. It's kind of strange, but they just don't. So anyway, and then of course the other thing is if you don't already have a trailer hitch and brake light wiring installed on your car for a trailer, you're going to have to pay hundreds of dollars to get that done on your car. And that cost is not necessary if, again, you are able to load your kayak on your car like I do. I use pads again on my roof crossbars. I use a bath mat to protect the paint on my car when I slide my kayak up onto the car, top of the car, and then I just use simple tie downs that I bought from Home Depot. Yeah, a trailer would be a lot easier for me, but then there's the issue of storage, not to mention parking when I go someplace. Maintenance costs are probably one of the primary reasons that people sell their boats. A gasoline engine can be extremely costly to maintain, even if you can do it yourself. You've got a lot of time involved and you still have to buy parts, and none of that is an issue with having a trolling motor. As inexpensive as they are, I just go buy another one should mine fail if I'm unable to get it fixed. And honestly, I don't desire to be an engine mechanic or learn how to be a boat motor mechanic, nor do I want to be out on the water when my boat motor fails and have to deal with all of that. I don't want to spend the money and the time working on motors. And if you have to put the motor in a shop, now you're out of operation. You can't go anywhere. Well, I own two trolling motors, and I actually have two kayaks, same kayak setup. So if one goes down, it's no big deal. I've got another one. And I don't need the trolling motor to go fishing. I just prefer the trolling motor because it's nice. Once I paddle out, I let the motor down, put it on speeds 1 or 2, and then I stand up and begin fishing. Because my kayak being all flat inside, it's easy to stand up in and fish that way. And again, as I mentioned, when a gasoline engine fails, if you're out on the water, basically you're screwed. People have to spend hundreds of dollars on sea tow insurance, and again, that's not a cost that's associated with a kayak and a trolling motor. If my trolling motor fails and I'm out on my kayak, so what? I just paddle back to shore. Why do I have a trolling motor? Well, when the current changes and you're against the current, it's a lot easier to use the motor. I pretty much use the motor exclusively the entire time I'm out. If there's wind against me or what have you, I do very little paddling, and I don't have to. I can stay out all day. The trolling motor that I have, 46-pound thrust, I use a 55 amp hour battery, and a lot of times after being out all day, because I'm just motoring to areas where I'm fishing, I turn it off, I back up, kind of move around a little bit, go from one spot to the other, but I'm not running full throttle all the time like I see boats doing out in the bay and the intercoastal, drinking up that gasoline, drinking up their wallet. So it lasts me all day. But anyway, if my trolling motor were to fail when I'm out, I just paddle back to shore. No big deal. So boat maintenance, in addition to engine maintenance, boat maintenance can be very time consuming and can be costly depending upon what is needed. By comparison, it costs me nothing to maintain my trolling motor, and it costs me nothing to maintain my kayak. Trailers have to be maintained because of the corrosive nature of water, especially if you're launching in salt water and that gets on the brake light wiring and begins to corrode it. It can corrode and affect the springs, definitely the bearings, which has to be replaced. Tires will have to be replaced at some point. And you'll see people saying that they've replaced a lot of parts on their trailers when they're selling them used. And in addition to that, there's the ongoing tagging and registration of the trailer that you've got to do every year. And so that's another expense that is not an issue if you're able to load your kayak atop your car or your truck. And there's a lot of videos online about how to do that. Some people have bought expensive equipment. Some people like me just use a bath mat, get it up on there. I use padded, Velcro wrap padded, I think they're surfboard pads that I put across my crossbars on the top of my car, and then I just strap it down with tie downs. The other issue is storage. Trailers can take up a lot of space, whether you're storing them somewhere or parking them somewhere. My community, HOA, will not allow us to park boats in streets or in our yards anywhere, so it has to be garaged. And what that would mean for me would be I have to buy a swing tongue trailer to put a boat in my garage, a breakaway tongue trailer, which is not a big deal. They're available. But it also takes up a lot of space, a lot more space than a kayak does. Kayaks take up very little space. In fact, one of my kayaks I hang suspended from the ceiling. So it's not even taking up any floor space. When it comes to ease of launching, with a kayak, you can access water via a lot of parks that you cannot access with a boat. They have ramps, but they put these concrete bollards up that prevent people from launching boats down. That's probably why there's no trailer parking at those parks. But you can take a kayak or canoe or whatever down them, and so you can launch from a lot more places. In fact, I would say anywhere you can access water with a kayak, even if you're putting it on a wheel carrier, there's a lot more points of access with a kayak than there are with a boat, because a boat is dependent upon a boat ramp exclusively. And what I have found is that where boat ramps are located is usually not where I want to go fishing, which means I've got to drive a bit. If I'm in a boat and I've launched from a boat ramp, I've got to drive a bit to get to a fishing spot. Whereas with my kayak, I'm usually putting in right where I want to go fish, and I don't have very far to go at all. And that is a big advantage, a huge advantage. You know, and again, some of our parks don't allow boats to be launched, but you can launch kayaks. So that's a big advantage. There's just a lot more places and opportunities for launching a kayak than there are for a boat. The other thing is boat ramps can get busy depending upon the time of day that you're launching and loading, and so you got to wait on other people. And the process is a lot easier if you're by yourself with a kayak than having to deal with a boat motor and trailer in your car, backing up and loading it and all, doing it all by yourself. I know some people have it down to a science, but I've been told by a number of people, boat owners, it's a royal pain doing it by yourself. So unless you've got somebody to go out with you each and every time, chances are they're not going to help you clean up the boat motor and trailer, but they will, you know, help you to launch and load. That does make it a lot easier if you have somebody to go out with you every time. If not, the kayak has the advantage over that. The other thing is cleanup time. When I come back in off the water, it's hot, I'm tired, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time cleaning up and so forth. So, you know, cleaning up my kayak, rinsing off the trolling motor, maybe my paddles, my vest, and putting it all away doesn't take any time at all. Whereas a motor, a gasoline motor, is going to have to be flushed. You got to put the little earmuff things on it and flush it. You've got to rinse that trailer thoroughly because of the corrosive nature of water. Make sure you've gotten that, and you've got to rinse the boat inside and out thoroughly. So I suspect there's a lot more time involved in cleanup every single time you go out on the water with a boat motor trailer than there is with a kayak. And YouTube has something called boat ramp fails, where you can see people whose cars and trucks have slidden down slippery ramps, boat ramps, into the water, and they've ruined their cars. And they had to get a wrecker and a dive team to come out because the guy that comes with a tow truck is not swimming under the water to connect the cabling to your car. So a dive team, and God knows what that's got to cost just to get the car out of the water. So, you know, if being at a boat ramp is a non-issue for you, I've also noticed not all boat ramps are equal. Some are extremely deep and some are steep and some are extremely slippery. And they can be very busy, again, when people are launching and loading at the same time. Sometimes I launch from a boat ramp, sometimes I don't. Beautiful thing is with a kayak, you don't have to. With a boat motor and trailer, you have no other choice but to. And again, typically they're not in areas where you ultimately want to go fishing, which means now you're going to be burning up gasoline, racing across the water to get to a place where you fish. With a kayak, another benefit is you can access skinny waters and get under low bridges where most boats cannot go. And that is a big advantage. Somebody asked me, why don't I just buy a John boat? And the reason is this. Typically, John boats are aluminum, which means here in Florida, they're going to be hot to the touch. I'm not interested in that. I know there's things that you can buy to cover the gunnels with, so you're not burning your hands all the time. But the other problem with a metal boat is they're noisy in the water, with the water slapping against that, and that alerts the fish that you're in the area. Flat bottom boats like a John boat also are a little rough on the body as you're riding along and you're hitting waves. Somebody said, yeah, they're great for chipping your teeth and so forth. That doesn't sound like fun to me. But by comparison, kayaks are not hot to the touch and they're not noisy in the water. So, at the end of the day, it is obviously a personal preference. One is far more costly than the other to buy. One is far more costly to maintain. There's storage issues, parking issues, and the like. So it's a personal preference. Boats are great if you've got somebody to go with you each and every time you go out. But again, if the motor fails when you're out on the water, now you got serious problems. If my motor fails on my kayak, so what? Big deal. I paddle back to shore. That's what you do with a kayak. The happiest days of a man's life is when he buys a boat and when he sells it. You don't really hear people saying that about kayaks. So again, the advantages and disadvantages. With a kayak, you can access more points of access to the water. There's no maintenance costs. There's no lengthy cleanup after every use. There's no cost to run it every time you go out. I'm not buying gasoline every time I go out. There's no boat ramp issues to face unless you just want to launch from a boat ramp, but you're not obligated to. You're not dependent on a boat ramp like you are with a boat motor trailer. There's no trailer storage or parking issues with just a kayak. There's no, again, I just talked about the boat motor trailer cleanup and cost to maintain. And again, unless you choose to get a little lightweight trailer, a small jet ski trailer for your kayak, you don't have those ongoing DMV costs to contend with either. And with a kayak, you've got the ability to go places where most boats cannot go. So if you're kind of deciding, you're new to this kayak fishing and you're debating, gee, I don't know whether to get a boat or a trailer, or a kayak, what should I do? I hope that this information will help you to maybe make that decision. And here's the other thing. If you buy a kayak and you outfit it at all, a lot of people aren't handy. My background is construction, so installing 2x6s and clamping a motor on it and setting up my kayak the way that I did, a lot of people have found it very helpful. Again, I put Outriggers on it. I didn't have to, but it just makes it so much more stable. It is like standing in a boat. And you don't have to do all of that, but I did. But once you outfit your kayak, you'll probably sell it for what you paid for it. So you'll get your money back. With a boat motor and trailer, it's a day of crying when you go to sell it because you're not going to get all that you put into it. So again, I hope that this has been helpful. These are just some comparisons that I've made that help me make my decision about what's the easier way to go. So, and it's not that I can't afford a boat motor and trailer. I could. I just, like a lot of people, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. And you can find other videos on YouTube where people have done a much better job. In fact, there's a great link if you just Google comparing kayak to boat motor and trailer, and you'll see some great articles out there. So hopefully this has been a blessing to you. Check out my videos on kayak modifications and see if that's something that you're interested in. Tight lines, go out and fish. Have a great